Hello and welcome to another episode of the Monday Night Wars. It is February 19th, 1996, and as always, we are live with WCW Nitro in Wicomico Civic Center? I don't know, man. Wicomico? Is that what you got? Is that how you pronounce it?
Your guess is as good as mine on this one.
Wicomico. Send us a letter if you live in Salisbury, Maryland, to tell us. As you may have noticed, with me is Joseph Rojas. How you doing, Joseph?
I'm good. And did you know, Scott, that we are up to 20 followers on Spotify at this point? Which honestly, like that's not a lot, right? But I think that's far more than either of us expected to be at this point.
I'm surprised we have one.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So thank you for all 20 of you. If you enjoy this podcast, which I mean you seem to because you keep listening, let your friends know about it, man. You know, I'm sure everybody's got that hidden closet wrestling fan that they're friends with, and then all of a sudden they start talking wrestling with, and then you start kind of bonding with them. And every single wrestling fan who's over the age of like 35 does the same thing. You know, wrestling really stopped being good after the Attitude Era. Tell them we got a whole podcast that's dedicated to the Attitude Era. Get them to listen.
I feel personally attacked by that comment.
Also, your immune system is personally attacking you right now.
Yeah. So if I sound a little nasally on this one, everybody, it's because I am sick. So this may be the last podcast because I could die. Who knows? But but I'm glad that 20 of you enjoy this. As Joseph mentioned, we're really just doing this for fun because we've been watching the old wrestling together. And Joseph said, "Hey, we're pretty funny. We should record a podcast." And apparently, 20 people in a world of 300 billion or whatever seem to agree. That's a great stat.
And like that, we're humbled.
So humbled. But let's get into it, Joseph, because we have so much to talk about, and I'm so excited to talk about this first match because you know how I love a good Arn Anderson match. Who is Arn going up against?
I don't know. Tell me, Scott.
Hulk Hogan. God damn it. The only thing really notable about this match is the commentary, because if you've been listening to this podcast long enough, as soon as I say Hulk Hogan match, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He no-sells everything. He hulks up. There's a leg drop. He actually ends up losing by DQ because the Hulkster don't lose clean, brother. But what's really interesting is the commentary, because Eric Bischoff tells us that the Hulkster, Ric Flair, Randy Savage, and Kevin Sullivan are going to be on Baywatch, Joseph. And that brings us to a vignette that I know you love, and I'm excited to talk about it when it happens. They also mention Vader, because Vader apparently was on this episode of Baywatch. And so Eric can't let an opportunity to shit talk Vader go. So he says that Vader left with his tail between his legs after a rather physical confrontation with Paul Orndorff. Wonderful. He also mentions that the cruiserweight division is being revived. We've been told this for about 6 years now that that's going to happen. I'm excited for when it actually does. And as I said, Hogan does Hogan, but he loses by DQ. 7 minutes, 2 seconds. Joseph, tell me about this godforsaken match.
Well, I have a few thoughts, and I'm going to try to separate them pretty clean because I think one of them may end up being me rambling, and then I'll just have to cut it. So it is what it is. The first thought is I when I was watching this match, I literally wrote down, let me guess, Hogan's allowed the loss last week so that way he could dominate this match. And that's literally what happens. He dominates the whole thing. And yes, Arn technically wins, but Arn doesn't come out of this looking like a winner. And I think, to be fair, you can have a DQ finish where you do look like a winner. This ain't it. If Arn, dominated after the DQ and really left Hogan as like a, or left him as kind of just like a bloody mess or whatever. I'm obviously, there's not really blood at this time. They try to stay away from that, but you know what I mean? Like really dominated him some sort of way. I think it could have worked.
Down and out. If he was down and out.
Yeah, but that's not what happens. And so you get this, the stereotypical Hogan. I'm not going to go too far into that because we've really spent, so many weeks now. I just edited like the last month in the last 2 weeks. And it's like, yeah, we've been talking about this over and over and over. So I think they're starting to feel it. I know by this point, Bischoff is really starting to go, we need to figure something out. So we're so close to a really, really fun event that we're going to have a lot of fun talking about. I'm sure you guys will have a lot of fun listening to, and we get to really enjoy it. But right now, WCW is just not doing well. And at the center of that is Hulk Hogan. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, and this might be the ramble part, you mentioned Eric Bischoff really taking the time to go out and just fire shots at Vader. If you hear that, the number one thought you're going to have is, wow, Eric Bischoff is a piece of shit. And I don't necessarily think that's untrue at this time. I mean, I'm not saying he is, but it definitely is not warranted. I think we can both agree on that. That being said, I know that Eric Bischoff, and he said this on his podcast, he said this in interviews, he said it on Twitter, kind of regrets a lot of the cheap shots now that he took so many years ago, because they didn't really help anything. It was mostly his competitive, juices flowing and all that. And I get that, right? I understand where it comes from. I would like to not hear it on a weekly basis. What's confusing to me, and this is the ramble part, you have someone who is in this very, very well talked about war, who regrets a lot of these mistakes of taking personal shots at wrestlers, or many moons from now, he's going to blow a very significant match that will actually backfire on them. There's a big teaser for way in the future. He regrets a lot of these things, right? He understands why he did them. We all do, but maybe wishes he had handled it a bit differently. So you have that. And you have a person who is currently in this make-believe land that he is currently at war with the now WWE. And he's not, because his show is crumbling and it's not doing well and people aren't showing up. And he routinely goes out of his way on Twitter and on live TV and in interviews to go out and attack. And again, if you look at them, they're kind of the same age around, where Eric Bischoff was at this time. And it's like, bro, how are you not learning? How are you not learning from the guy who actually did this and actually was victorious for a long period of time? Just take it easy. I mean, one of the coolest things that we saw very recently was the Royal Rumble, the actual current 2024 Royal Rumble. Jordan Grace come out, who is arguably the biggest star in TNA. You can make a case for some other individuals. Let's not get too hung up on that. But she comes out into the Royal Rumble match, and you look at this and you go, wow, is TNA starting to create a working relationship with WWE? And if that's the case, that is the best move that TNA could do. Let's not take shots. We're not going to trump this multi-billion-dollar empire. Let's just utilize them to help promote ourselves. And I just wish that somebody would just learn from past mistakes. All right, rant over. You feel free to jump in if you want, but that's the end of my rant on that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I fell asleep, man. No, that's really good. I agree. Yeah, whatever you just said. Congratulations or condolences. Whatever that was, man. No, I agree. I heard the whole thing. I think yes, people keep. I think WCW, to be fair, was more of a direct competitor to WWF than like AEW is, right?
Correct.
So I do think there is a bit more of a rivalry here, and obviously WCW really was a genuine rival. They beat him in the ratings for 83 weeks straight, right? So I think it might be a bit of an apples to oranges comparison, but I agree with you that your primary singular goal should not be to undo WWF. It should be to put on a great show every week, and by the sheer will of your abilities, that's how you win. And yeah, I agree. I would say, to be fair to Eric, obviously WWF is doing stuff too. They're obviously doing the Billionaire Ted segments. Although in the grand scheme of things, I think Eric kind of started the name calling. So
I mean, to be fair, it's a toxic wrestling environment at this time. So we expect some of these things. We're not condoning them by any stretch. But yeah, you're right. It is happening on both sides of the fence.
We're not condoning toxic wrestling behavior. What kind of wrestling podcast are we?
A good one.
Whoa.
That's some
and our 20 listeners agree.
And maybe one of them will go, hey, that was a Holes reference. It was.
Wow. Wow, that's why they listen. They listen for those deep cuts. Let's move on because remember, Joseph, when I told you how Eric told us the cruiserweight division is coming?
Yes.
Well, here we have it, bro, because we got Alex Wright versus Loch Ness. Oh, this isn't a cruiserweight match. That dude's like 900 pounds. It's Loch Ness versus Alex Wright, and it goes about how you'd expect. Alex Wright tries to use his speed and agility to defeat the big man that is Loch Ness, but it doesn't work. He loses. We're pushing Loch Ness for some reason, I guess, because the dungeon needs another big man for some reason. Like, you got Giant. You're good. I don't understand it. Anyways, Loch Ness defeats Alex Wright 2 minutes, 21 seconds. Wasn't in love with this, Joseph. What'd you think?
Got an F for me. It was not good. I don't have a lot to say other than it's not good. Loch Ness is at the end of his career. He can't move. He's too big. Alex Wright puts up a valiant effort, but this is, I mean, I don't know why we're doing this.
Yeah, Loch Ness just kind of stands there for the most part. He really doesn't hardly move at all. Alex Wright kind of does all the work, and then he loses. And I don't know why. I don't know what purpose this serves. I don't know why the dungeon needs this. Up next is a promo for WCW Saturday Night, 6:05 Eastern. And honestly, it's got a better card than WCW Monday Night Nitro does tonight. So maybe we'll just watch that instead. But we're not, because that's not the show. So we're just going to keep going. And up next, we've got the Belfast Bruiser versus Brad Armstrong. Oh, this night just keeps getting better, Joseph. All these guys I've never heard of versus guys I've never heard of. The Belfast Bruiser you actually have heard of. It's Fit Finlay. And Brad Armstrong is better known as the brother of Road Dogg Jesse James. Fit Finlay, for the purpose of WCW, is the Belfast Bruiser, and he's apparently here because Steven Regal wronged him back in old country. Or I should say, back in old country, because it's England, guys. This is a rematch from Saturday night. We're told this. Apparently, the Blue Bloods interfered in that one, so they're doing the match again. And the Bruiser brutalizes Brad for the win. 6 minutes, 47 seconds. Joseph, what'd you think?
I gave this a B. I enjoyed it. There's no story here. I mean, you kind of laid out one, right? They're trying to make one. It's the start of something, but it's not really a super story driven anything. It's fun. Both men are very competitive. They do a very good job. I love Finley. Brad Armstrong, by the way, he's kind of this low key plug and play guy for WCW at this time. They'll put him in random matches here and there. And each time they do, he does a very good job. Fit Finley, though, I mean, this guy still trains wrestlers to this day. I think he's one of the individuals who is one of the big producers or agents for a lot of the women's wrestlers in WWE. A lot of female wrestlers credit him heavily for some of the chances and training and lessons that they learned from him, and he is, to my understanding, very, very well loved just in wrestling in general. It's great. I liked the match personally. I thought this honestly may have been the best thing of the night, and that's kind of sad because there's really nothing going on with it, but all the storylines are just falling flat and falling flat hard.
Sad to say, but I think you're right. Technically speaking, as a match between wrestlers, probably the best wrestled match of the night for WCW. And it's between, I mean, Fit Finlay is a guy we know and love, right? But for the purposes of WCW, the Belfast Bruiser is a nobody. Brad Armstrong is a nobody. And it's your best match of the night. When you started with Arn and Hulk Hogan, and you're going to end with Ric Flair and Randy Savage, and this is your best wrestled match of the night? WCW's having some problems right now. They need a shot in the arm. They need something new. They need to bring order to the chaos of WCW and light the world on fire, Joseph.
How many times are you going to tease this?
New. I don't know.
So ridiculous.
Hey, it gets the people coming back for more.
It's true. That single-handedly drove us up to 20 subscribers, so I can't shit on it too much.
Hey, I'm just doing what wrestling does, right? I'm doing hype videos. I'm trying to get you hyped for the next thing coming. That's all I'm doing.
Just vignette after vignette. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I got one in here too, hyping another wrestler we know and love. So just give me a moment, okay? Just give me some time. Let me work my magic, all
All
right?
right. All right. I'll let you do your thing.
All right. But after that, though, we go to our main event. We've got Ric Flair with Miss Elizabeth and the woman, because Miss Elizabeth is evil now. She's turned on Randy, and now we have this horrible storyline going forward about how she's taking all of his money, and we really kind of make light of their sad and upsetting divorce, and I don't like it. But it's not that terrible yet, but it's gonna get there. But let's just get into it. Let's just keep going, because I just love this storyline. If you couldn't tell, we've got Ric Flair, we've got Randy Savage for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. The match itself, I feel like, is pretty straightforward. It's a Ric Flair Macho Man Randy Savage match. I really don't have any complaints about that. Of note, Miss Elizabeth distracts the referee. That allows the woman to throw her high heel into the ring. This has become a recurring thing where they use the high heel to blind the opposing wrestler. They've done it a few times to the Hulkster. They try to do it to Macho Man, but Macho Man's wise to it. He grabs it and nails Flair instead. He goes for the pin, but it's no good. Kevin Sullivan comes out. Hogan comes out. Arn comes out, and he gives Savage a DDT. Flair gets the pin for the win. He retains the title. And Joseph, now our heroes are outnumbered in the ring 3-2. Who will save them? Who will come to their aid?
I'm thinking Sting. It's got to be Sting, right? That's their big guy.
Wrong.
Okay, hold on. Let me get another chance here.
Okay.
You know what? I think it could be an interesting swerve if maybe you decide to do a little bit of a face turn for like Diamond Dallas Page. He's kind of in this mid card thing. You could make him. That sounds good. How about that?
Wrong.
All right, one more try. One more try.
Okay.
They decide to split up a tag team they're not using, and Marcus Bagwell takes the next step into being a singles competitor.
Marcus Alexander Bagwell?
Yes.
Wrong.
Well, then who?
Well, let me tell you, it is the Booty Man. He's here, Joseph.
Guys, he's really sick right now. that was that was the most absurd thing ever. I loved it.
It's the Booty Man. We've been waiting. One of the worst gimmicks WCW ever does, and it's here, baby. Joseph, tell me more about this. Break this down for me.
Before we get into the Booty Man, I do want to talk about the match a little bit. I really am kind of getting frustrated at this point of the WCW World Title being defended on Nitro. It's fine once in a while. I think it's fine. It's almost every week now. And it's like you guys have the tag team titles, which are essentially, I mean, they're shown pay-per-views, but they're really not hyped. You have the US champion, which I think is still Conan at this point. I think he's still that, unless on a random dark show they took it off him. Who knows?
He still is, because
Okay.
he is wrestling on Saturday night with defending the titles. Yes, he is.
Okay. These championships are just not shown. And they're just doing a bad job of building to their pay-per-views and making really anybody have any interest in it. I think they won really heavily last week, but that's because they were up against no one. I don't think that anybody who watched last week, and we really, really went in on them last week. And I think we're doing the same thing here. I don't know how, as a fan, you want to watch next week or even this week. So I really don't like the title being, put up every single week. I will say the match, like you said, it was a fine match. These two men have phenomenal chemistry, so I enjoyed that. I give the match kind of a B. I thought it was fine. The Miss Elizabeth cheating thing, I'm fine with that. It makes sense. Storyline, totally cool. And then you get to this thing where it's like 3 versus 2. And I think, by the way, that honestly, if it was just again, if there was no Dungeon of Doom, if it was really kind of a 3 and 2 thing, I think that's okay. They've kind of done that a lot lately with Hogan and Mach. They've made them a tag team and another guy who usually is Sting. But okay, whatever. And then you bring in the Booty Man, who, by the way, prior to this was the Zodiac, and prior to the Zodiac, by the way, from Dungeon of Doom. Prior to being the Zodiac, he was the Butcher when he first debuted on WCW, I believe. And before that, he was in WWF as Brutus the Barber Beefcake. And at no point in any of those stints was he ever good. He's not entertaining. His characters are all boring. His in-ring work isn't great. And now you straddle him with, I don't think I could put it any better than you did, one of the worst gimmicks in WCW history with the Booty Man. And Hogan is actively trying to get him over in this segment. And it's hilarious because it's not working. The crowd is already like, this is the dumbest thing we've seen. And they're already turning on the Booty Man. It doesn't work. I'd give the whole thing with the match and the Booty Man thing maybe like a C minus. This kind of closes out the show. The show got like a C from me. It's not good. It's just very meh. I probably could have graded it way worse, but I'm being nice. It's not great.
Well, first of all, I think it's important that you note that, yes, he was the Zodiac before this and the Butcher before that. And we don't acknowledge any of that. This is a completely new person that we've never seen before, according to WCW. And it's wild. The announcers are confused. The audience is legitimately confused. But Joseph, explain to me the Booty Man gimmick. What makes him the Booty Man?
So as far as I can gather, having done zero research and being ready for this question, it's that he has white tights that have the butt cheeks cut out of them, and he wears like either, I think, neon green or neon pink, depending on the day, tights underneath those to accentuate his booty. I believe that's what his gimmick is.
Yeah, it's a man infatuated with his own buttocks, according to Wikipedia.
And
That's the gimmick.
And by the way, that'll never get over.
Yeah, and you're right. He wears tights.
Now, hear me out. Hear me out. That being about a butt will never get over.
You don't think an ass man ever has a chance?
No,
in wrestling?
no way.
Never.
No.
I didn't get your joke at first. It went over my head completely.
You're sick. I'll let it go.
Thank you. I appreciate you, man. But when you said that, a light bulb went off in my head, and it's amazing how did WWF see the Booty Man and go, we can do better. It's amazing though. It's essentially the same gimmick. One done horribly,
Yeah,
and one of the most iconic wrestlers of the Attitude Era.
yeah. Vince said, "I like it," and then just stole it.
I wouldn't doubt I wouldn't doubt that story. That's how it happened.
And then he passed around.
See, I knew you were gonna do that.
Then he passed it around the offices. Everybody got their chance with the booty.
I knew you were gonna do this. I knew where that joke was going. We are gonna get sued.
Allegedly.
Yeah. That makes it completely legal. When you say allegedly, it makes slander completely legal.
And it wasn't covered up. And then, oh wait, the guy who did cover it up, actually, he was a good Nazi. And really, he was the one who was abused. And we should really take pity on him.
Well, that's the end of the podcast, probably forever. Because we're going to get in so much trouble from WWE's legal team. Although they're gone now, right? Those guys are gone. I guess but Vince is rich beyond all belief. So
yeah,
he'll just sue the crap out of us privately. He doesn't need the WWE. Great. Appreciate you, man. All right.
No problem.
Yeah, well, I guess it's not quite over, though, Joseph, because Flair, Arn, and the Taskmaster Kevin Sullivan crashed the announce table again. Not as good as last week, which I loved. It was fantastic because Flair just went off. Not as good this week because they get run off by Hogan, Savage, and the Booty Man.
That's so dumb.
I'm
my favorite part is because you're sick, you couldn't pull that off the second time, but you
Yeah,
just twisted it midway. You're like, I'm just gonna do it this way.
I gave it a little flair. Yeah, I gave it a
Yeah.
little
Little Ric
something,
Flair? Yeah.
a little stinger there. Yeah. And, yeah, no, I'm probably gonna have to drink a lot of water between, our podcasts here to soothe my throat.
Yeah, get
But
some
yeah,
tea in you.
yeah, no, absolutely. But that does do it for the night for WCW, but not for us, because now we move to Raw at the Cincinnati Gardens in, you guessed it, Cincinnati, Ohio. We get a recap from In Your House. We get Sunny in a bikini again. Viewer discretion is advised, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to have a Larry Fling live segment with Billionaire Ted. Oh, I can't wait. And Joseph, are you ready for this?
What am I ready for?
The Ultimate Warrior coming back. You
Yeah.
excited?
Fuck.
You
I don't
excited?
know. I don't know who I hate more, the Ultimate Warrior or the Booty Man.
Oof. Well, is Brutus the Barber Beefcake a bad dude? Because the Ultimate Warrior bad.
Yeah. I mean, they're both bad dudes.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. It's like which flavor of bad dude. You know what I mean?
You know, wrestling in the 90s, you throw a rock and you'll hit a bad dude. But, you know. Oh, well. Speaking of bad dudes,
Uh-huh.
we got the bad man up next. We got Razor Ramon versus Goldust, who has the WWF Intercontinental Championship. The match starts and Razor just goes off. He goes right at Goldust, doesn't even let the guy get his robe off, spits in his face, even tries to hit Goldust with his own title belt. There's a lot of sexual tension here. Razor clearly isn't respecting the safety word, and Goldust has had enough. He rolls out of the ring. He runs to the back for the count out. He retains the title because Razor defeats him via count out. He keeps the championship. After that, though, Razor gets on the mic and he says he doesn't want Goldust's belt, Joseph. He wants his ass. And to that, I think Goldust says, "That's what I've been trying to tell you."
Yeah. I mean,
I don't
don't threaten me with a good time.
I don't understand the issue here. Razor tells Rowdy Roddy Piper that he thinks what Goldust does is inappropriate. It's not suitable for television, and he doesn't want his kids watching it. But then he also says he wants to match, so I feel like that kind of defeated the purpose. What did you think of this, Joseph? What did you think of the match? What did you think of Razor? What's going on?
So you know I love Scott Hall, aka Razor Ramon. You know I'm a huge fan of his. You know that I'm a huge fan of Goldust, aka Dustin Rhodes. On paper, putting them together, I should be very happy. And I was when they first did it, however many months ago. I don't like this. It doesn't really work. You've mentioned this a few times while you were kind of breaking it down. What's going on? That's kind of the problem. We don't know what's going on. They're constantly going back and forth over each other as far as whatever the narrative is surrounding this storyline. It doesn't work. I feel like I'm watching the Barbie movie. Like none of the narratives actually have a point. They're just kind of thrown in and then they're immediately counteracted like a scene later. And that's kind of what this is. You mentioned his "I want your ass." Then all of a sudden, everything you do is inappropriate. Then all of a sudden, "I want a match." None of it makes sense. It doesn't really line up. I don't know who wrote this segment or if it was just, hey, go out there and do whatever you want, but it doesn't fit. I gave it a C- overall. Also, they clearly took Scott Hall's real life kind of issues with this match or this feud, and they tried to utilize that, which I actually applaud. I think utilizing real life is a really good way of making a lot of great tension on TV. It wasn't executed well, so neither man
If
looked
done right. If
yeah,
done right. Because yeah, like the Miss Elizabeth Randy Savage thing, we don't like that because it's not done right. It's kind of gross, really.
correct.
And then we get to the Jake the Snake, Jerry Lawler thing, which is gross and we don't like it. But yeah, I agree. Bringing real life issues in the ring and using them appropriately is great because it blurs that line of reality. But yeah, not done well here.
So it's mostly just disappointing more than anything.
But Undertaker comes out of a coffin. That happens after. He comes out of a coffin, Joseph. He's the Undertaker.
I
That's
love
about
I love
Uh,
The Undertaker, so I'm gonna give that an A. I didn't grade that, but I'm gonna give it an A because I love The Undertaker.
I mean, that's basically all that happens. There's a
Yeah.
coffin backstage. He comes out of it.
Yeah, it's standing up, right? Like, it's just
Yes.
yeah, and
Leaning up against the wall. Yeah.
yeah, and it's corny as hell. This is not really A-worthy. If you watch it and you go, "How do you give this an A?" It's not great, but it is what it is.
After that, though, Doc, Hendricks recaps In Your House, and he seems to agree with us, Joseph. He seems to agree with us that the Sean Owen match was the best match of the night because it gets a lot of airtime. Talks about it a lot. Because of that, Sean will face Brett for the title at WrestleMania. Undertaker and Diesel are going to settle their differences at the Mania too. Because if you recall, at In Your House, Brett and Diesel wrestled in a cage for the championship, and that was supposed to keep Undertaker out. But the dead man can't be kept down. You get that? Did you get that, Joseph? Did you got to do there? Can't
Yeah,
be kept down.
I thought that was fantastic.
Can't be kept down because he was under the ring, man. He came out from under the ring and pulled Diesel in. That's cinema.
Claire's gonna come home and be like, Why is your voice gone? I
You know,
shouted for 4 hours."
I'm just that hyped about what I'm seeing here. I will say, WWF is putting on a better product right now.
Yes, I agree.
I'm overhyping it for comedic effect,
Yeah,
but that was better. I like that gimmick. I like the coming out from under the ring gimmick, pulling people in. I like it. I
yeah.
enjoyed it.
No, I
So it was
100%
good.
agree.
Up next, so the next match is Skip and Zip of the Body Thomas.
We just talked about the better product and then rolled right into this.
For comedic effect. I
Yeah.
laugh every time. Skip and Zip. I laugh every damn time. It's horrible. It's a horrible name. Skip and Zip, the Body Thomas with Sonny versus Barry Horowitz and Aldo Montoya. But as you said, better product when we roll into this. WWF knows this ain't great. And they solve this match by having Vader come out and kill Barry Horowitz and Aldo Montoya. He destroys them. And then we don't even have a match. It ends in no contest. Joseph, there's not much to say here, but do you have any thoughts?
I thoroughly enjoyed this segment. It's not the best segment we'll watch. I got a B minus for me. I like what they're doing with Vader. This kind of destroys everybody monster is really cool. I like the interruption that he's doing. They kind of teased this a little bit with Diesel, and I wish they had followed through with it because they kind of ended that pretty abruptly. But I think it's a cool angle. If it lasts for weeks and has a huge payoff, that'd be great. I don't really know who that huge payoff could be with. You'd think Yokozuna, but I don't know if that's going to work all the way. I can't really remember what happens in a few weeks from here. But I think right now, in the scope of just this week, I'm still on board.
Yeah, as you mentioned with Diesel, they did something similar with Diesel, and I like this angle, although the Diesel one didn't really pan out, I don't feel like. But this is you're not giving me what I want, so I'm going to mess with your business until you give me what I want, right? You're not giving me the shots I want. You're not giving me, whatever. I'm just going to come out and wreck your matches until you do what I want. I like that angle. That's a good bad guy angle. I think Debater did it well. I like it. We'll see if it pans out. But you know something that isn't going to pan out, Joseph?
What's that, Scott?
Ultimate Warrior coming back.
And you're right. It's not going to pan out.
It's not going to pan out, but they don't know that yet. And we got our Ultimate Warrior hype video, Joseph. How hype on a scale of 1? Let me rephrase this a different way for you.
Okay.
On a scale of 10 to 10, how 10 were you on this hype video?
I was negative 5,000.
I didn't give you that option.
I reject your scale.
I don't appreciate that. I asked the questions here. Whatever. Anyways, you didn't like the hype video?
No, I hate Ultimate Warrior. There's a lot of people who are still Ultimate Warrior fans. I think it's because when they were little kids growing up in like the late 80s, early 90s, obviously he was entertaining. And well, this guy comes in and he does these big moves and he's got all this colorful face paint and his gear is super cool. And I agree. That's interesting. Sucks on the mic, sucks in the ring, horrible person. You mentioned a while back, we were talking about Eric Bischoff, and you mentioned that Eric Bischoff is a net positive for wrestling, which I 100% agree with. Ultimate Warrior is a net negative for wrestling.
You don't like racist, misogynistic,
Homophobic.
guys? Homophobic. You don't like that?
Not a fan. No.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me just make a note of that. Steer clear of those issues, okay. Yeah, he's
And he's not talented. That's the crazy thing.
yeah.
It's not that we could forgive it, but you're also not talented, so it's not like at this time we could look at it and go, "Okay, from the product side is at least experiencing a boom because of this."
Yeah, and we do like to try and create those distinctions, right? The backstage product versus the product, I should say we try to create those distinctions between what's going on backstage and the product up front. And yeah, I guess I don't have the nostalgia of Ultimate Warrior. I really started watching WCW. So my first kind of foray into wrestling was WCW. This era of WCW, and then I bled into the Attitude Era. So I don't really have this nostalgia for Ultimate Warrior. And really all I have of Ultimate Warrior is what I see here when he comes back to WWF, and then when he's in WCW for a bit, because that happens after. He just seems like kind of like Hulk Hogan, but like a not as good version of Hulk Hogan and on cocaine. Because he just screams and he runs around and he throws the ropes, and then he just no sells everything and wins. That's pretty much it. I don't like it.
Me either.
Well, on that note, let's talk about something we do like.
Okay.
The Ringmaster. No, we don't really like that either. Okay, well, how about Marty Jannetty? Marty's all
Well,
right.
I gotta pull you back here, Scott,
Whoa, pull me back, pull me back.
because you skipped over something that I know you love.
Well, I'm ill, Joseph, so I can't be
I
Why don't you tell
no,
me what I skipped?
I
Because I don't have it in my
100%
notes.
agree with you, but you skipped Sonny doing the Marilyn Monroe "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" thing.
Oh, that's why I left that one. Now I remember.
When you said that we were gonna go into something that we love, I knew this was the next thing, and I was like, "There's no way he's gonna tie that to this," and then it's because you forgot. Okay.
Well, do you wanna talk more about it, or are we good?
I gave it an F plus, and the plus is because it's technically President's Day, so it's topical.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But I don't I don't wanna get in this rant again because I get into it so
Yeah,
many
yeah.
times. Just I don't really like the treatment of women in wrestling at this time. Call me a women's liber, but, I just don't like it. I don't like it.
So you think that women should be treated fairly?
Yeah.
All
Well,
right,
I
let me
think
just
they should be
I
yeah,
need
you
to take that note real quick.
yeah, can't talk about that. Uh, yeah, I'd let them prove their worth by, their merits,
Yeah.
judge them by their merits and let them perform and do it. Like I said, I told the story a dozen times and I'll just recap it again. You know, when I came back to wrestling because you encouraged me to watch early AEW because you were like, oh man, this is like WCW in 1997. You got to come back. It's now WCW 2000. But for that time, it was really good. And I remember that, like, when we were watching, a women's match would come on, I'd be like, oh, this is time to use the bathroom. This is time to go get a snack. It's time to get a drink. Because my mind was Attitude Era, you know, women's matches that they weren't really matches. They were just an excuse to show off the female form. And then you're like, no, watch these matches. They're really good. These ladies are really talented. And yeah, they're great. And I was like, man, I would have really enjoyed this. I would have really enjoyed this had I had this during the Attitude Era because they do some great matches. They do some great stuff. I remember we have a running gag where I go, "This is a ladies' match," when they're just like destroying each other and it's bloody mess. I'm like, my God, these women can wrestle. They've earned their stripes, and it's because of all these people that came before them and had to put up with the bullshit of this time period in wrestling. So I guess we have to give. I shouldn't say I guess. I know we have to give our respect to the female talent of this era, but I don't like watching it. I'm not a fan of it. And I said I was going to be short, and then I talked for like 40 minutes. Whatever. You can cut that if you want. Because up next, we got the Ringmaster, and we got Marty Jannetty. And if you can't guess what's going to happen here, Marty loses. I'll tell you, he gets a regular Texas mud hole stomped into him, and that's the bottom line because the Ringmaster said so.
I don't get it.
You don't get it?
No.
Well, I mean, maybe you're not ready for that, but your kids are gonna love it.
I think so
What
as
did you
well.
think about this match? What'd you think about this match?
It was fine. I got a C plus for me. Both wrestlers are very, you know, technically gifted. Also, you did mention kind of when we were initially going into this, and I pulled you back, you know, something that we love. Well, this I believe is the first time that they reference the ringmaster as actually Stone Cold. They say that he has a stone cold glare, and they keep saying that over and over, and which is true. That's kind of the point, right? That's why they started calling him Stone Cold. They also have him out of the green trunks that he was wearing, which were supposed to represent, you know, money for being part of the $1 million corporation. Now he's in black trunks. I think they've realized already the ringmaster has kind of run its course and they need to pivot. So luckily, that era of Steve Austin doesn't last very long. So we're heading into some very fun stuff. It's really funny because where me and Scott are with watching this right now, we're about 7 to 8 months ahead of this. And we're seeing like real Stone Cold. So if you're thinking about it, like we're really, really close and we're enjoying the hell out of it and having a really good time. But it's a C plus now. It's going to get better. The match is fine. It's interesting enough. The right person won, so I'll give it credit for that. But there's obviously no storyline, and that is a huge failing for the kind of ringmaster gimmick or Steve Austin this time. He's not really in a storyline, but it kind of is what it is.
Yeah, you have to give credit where credit is due in WWF for how quickly they realize that they have something in Steve Austin, but just not in this gimmick. Because they switch him out of the ringmaster pretty quickly. We start calling him Stone Cold, and then he becomes Steve Austin, and he becomes Stone Cold Steve Austin. And yeah, we're 7 months in, and we just got the glass shattering. I mean, it's happening really fast. And I'm impressed because I love Stone Cold. He's my favorite wrestler of all time. And I am really enjoying watching this happen and how quickly it happens. I don't have to suffer through 4 years of ringmaster before I get Stone Cold. I'm getting him pretty fast, and so I'm excited about that. We're also getting Mankind pretty fast because we got a Mankind promo. He's coming. So that's exciting too. And I got to say, Joseph, in this Mankind promo, I feel kind of bad for the guy. He's talking about how why did God not give him all the parts that he gave other people and kind of stuff like that? It's kind of sad, man. I feel bad for this guy.
That's kind of the beauty of Mankind, right? I mean, Mick Foley's creation is so, so good. I would be shocked, and he may say otherwise. I haven't looked into it, and I might have to soon. I'd be shocked if anybody else was helping to write these things. Maybe helping with the structure, but just the ideas, like these are so otherworldly than what anything is happening in both WWF or WCW. ECW's got some pretty interesting ideas running right now that they can kind of test because they're obviously not as on a global or national platform as these companies are. So they get to kind of have some fun, which honestly is kind of what helped both Mick Foley and Steve Austin. They did some time in there before they came over and were able to kind of workshop some things. And that's why you have both these guys. Everybody likes to say, and it's really interesting that we're talking about both of them back to back. Everybody likes to say, "Oh, can you believe that Eric Bischoff released both of them?" I'm sorry, but neither of them were doing this kind of stuff on WCW. And they kind of got a chance to really reset their brains in ECW and kind of on the independent circuit, really think about what they wanted to do, get themselves signed in WWF, and really start exploring that and moving it. And then it just catches like wildfire. And the reason I keep harping on we're so close to really fun stuff is we just had Steve Austin. We're now talking about Mankind. We're going to roll soon into an Undertaker match. And we're starting to see that framework for just a really, really good show. And again, this is just another A+ vignette from Mick Foley.
I think it's hard to put into words how important ECW really was to the development of wrestling kind of as we know it, right? Because you're right, both these guys did a stint in ECW, And ECW was known for being more extreme, right? That was their whole premise. They had an edge to them. And I think you're right, because they were not doing this stuff in WCW. And ECW really allowed them to have that edge that they bring into WWF and really kind of jumpstart the Attitude Era, this edge that they bring. Because you and I agreed when Stone Cold Ringmaster made his first appearance, even with that dumb gimmick, you and I both said, this guy's got something. Like, he was different than anything we had seen before in WWF at that time. And Mankind's the same way. And you're right. I think this gimmick is kind of completely Mick Foley's making. I think you and I were talking just a couple days ago when I mentioned that Vince McMahon he didn't really like the Cactus Jack character, and he wanted Mick Foley to cover his face up because he does have the missing ear and all of that. So they did some designs of him wearing a leather mask and chains, and they gave him the name Mason the Mutilator. And Mick Foley liked the idea of the mask. He didn't like the name. And thank God he came up with the name Mankind, and Vince McMahon liked it and he approved it. So I think a lot of this is just off the dome for Mick Foley. The guy is incredibly talented. Absolutely. I mean, he is in the Hall of Fame, but absolutely deservedly Hall of Fame first rounder, just for how great he is and all the characters he brought and just the fun he has with them. Next up is a promo, though, Joseph. Promo for next week. What do we got? Oh, we got a handicap match. Well, that sounds exciting. Who's it with? Bulldog and Owen Hart versus Yokozuna? They're going to put Yokozuna in a handicap match by himself? The man can't wrestle. He's 400 pounds. What are they doing? They're going to kill this man. I don't think this is a good idea, Joseph. But Sean and Brett are going to be there too, though. How do you feel about this?
I honestly am okay with it at this point. Yokozuna's had some interesting and kind of fun developments in the last few weeks. I think it gets halted pretty quickly and literally for the limitations that you're mentioning. But it's a good idea. I'll say that. It's a good idea. I just don't know if physically he can do everything that will need to be done. And obviously we'll talk about that in long form, next week. But I honestly, if I was watching at this time, would be like, that's the storyline I want to see, because Yokozuna really killed it on the mic last few weeks. He's got this hot rivalry. Yeah, I'm kind of in.
Oh, I agree. The storyline is good. I like the storyline, but putting him in a handicap match where it's just him versus two guys?
Well, the idea is supposed to be that he's this big monster, right? So he should be able to take on two guys. That's what they're going for. Again, you and I just kind of have the hindsight of he can't really move, he can't really do these things. At the time, though, as kids, we didn't know that kind of stuff.
I'm just worried about this man's health.
That's fair.
That's all I'm saying. You know what else? You know who else's health I'm worried about, Joseph?
Yours?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, maybe if there's no podcast after this one, you'll all know why. Send money to Joseph's Patreon in lieu of flowers. Thank you, everybody. But no, I'm worried for Tatanka, because he's got a match up next versus The Undertaker. And I don't think this is going to go well for our man, Tatanka. And it doesn't. It really doesn't. It does not go well at all. He kind of get wrecked. He gets choke slammed, and then he gets tombstoned. My God, he's already dead. Undertaker wins. But more importantly than that, because the match is pretty straightforward. Diesel comes out with a fucking axe. He grabs the cameraman, and we go to commercial because we're having some technical difficulties here. Back from the commercial, though, Diesel is destroying Taker's coffin house. And after the match, they put it up on the jumbo screen. Diesel destroying the caskets, put on the big screen, and it causes Taker to run to the back because he is not getting his person last month's rent back now. Joseph, what'd you think about the match? What do you think about this angle of Diesel taking Undertaker's house away from him? Because I assume that's where Undertaker lives. What do you make of all this?
So the funny thing is the unfortunate part about this podcast being really kind of audio is that coffin house bit totally got me. But it got me so good. I did that kind of silent laugh where you can't, like, the vocal just doesn't come out. It was really good. I like that. I think this whole segment is really well done. The match itself is really just kind of a springboard for this segment, which is fine, right? Undertaker gets to show off that he is this, amazing, amazing phenom, if you will. And he gets to kind of just be a badass, like an American badass. And he has this great moment. And then what I like is that when Diesel comes out, he kind of comes out very subtly. Like it's not very in your face. He's not trying to distract Taker or anything like that. Just comes over to the camera and he's like, "Hey, you follow me." And then they go back, and then obviously he does everything that you mentioned. And it's really funny also because he starts losing steam pretty quickly. As physically fit as he very clearly is, I don't know if you've ever chopped wood. It's no joke. It's a workout. So he's losing steam after a while because this thing is not breaking as quickly as he had hoped, and so he really has to go to town on it. I think this rivalry is so much fun right now. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I like everywhere it's going. I cost you, you cost me. I think it's so good. I think it's setting up for WrestleMania. It's one of the big rivalries on either show that I am hyped for completely. And I don't remember how the WrestleMania match is going to turn out, but I right now, if I'm watching it at this point, that gets an A, I'm on board. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good night for WWF, and you're right. Diesel does get a little. It's a well-built coffin. It's a little hard for him to smash up. They built it a little too well. It's kind of like those WCW tables. They just
Yeah,
don't break. Maybe he's built from the same materials. I
maybe.
don't know. But yeah, overall, pretty good night for WWF. I don't think anything could really bring us down from this high that we have. Oh, it's the billionaire Ted segment. So we got Larry Fling, who is supposed to be Larry King, who had a program for you youngins, had a program called Larry King Live for many, 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 many years on CNN, which was, I mean, it was a big deal. Like it was a thing people watched. He was one of the great interviewers of his age. Had very famous people on for an hour just talking. He'd get them to tell us things we'd never heard before. Just really kind of renowned, well-known interviewer. They're obviously doing a parody here with Larry Fling. CNN was owned by Ted Turner, which billionaire Ted notes that he owns Larry. And so to, keep it clean, they take calls from a guy named Randy in Sarasota, Florida. I wonder who that's supposed to be. And they also get a call from Terry, and Terry says he needs Monday off because he got hit. He got hit with the heel of a woman's shoe. They get a call from a guy named Terry. I wonder who that's supposed to be. And he needs Monday off because he got hit with a woman's shoe. Ha ha! What a joke. But then Larry goes off script and he asks Ted about his companies and issues with his companies. And, Ted can't answer those questions. And, that's where we end it. And it's just another one of these things where I think this might be a little bit of a, messing with like stocks and things, and you can't really do that. But backstage, Undertaker's homeless. The end. What do you think, Joseph?
It was bad, obviously, as all of these segments are. It's not good. This is really kind of going back to what we've said a few weeks ago, where they really dug in hard. They got a lot of pushback from USA, and then basically were told, you need to stop this and start sending your scripts and everything. You can kind of see that in this one, because even though they're taking shots, the shots are a lot more surface level or more alluding to, and not, hey, we're stating this as a fact, because they, number one, can't. They don't actually know what they're talking about. They're just making giant assumptions. And obviously Vince is being super petty and doing all this nonsense. And a lot of it is more going back to, we're just going to make fun of the wrestlers. We're making fun of their storyline, which, to be fair, the WCW storyline right now is not very good. So that's kind of fair. They also randomly just, like, Jane Fonda catches a stray, because I think she's married to, at the time, Ted Turner. So they make
Not sure if they're married, but they certainly dated.
well,
I'm
I know they get married. So
Wow, you're right.
also,
They are.
it's
They
such
are. They're married. Married in 1991, divorced in 2001.
see, there you go. And it's such a specific reference too. Like, you really have to know what they're talking about to get it. And it's just like, all right, whatever. So It's dumb. It's a bad way to end the show. I think I've said it a few times. This will end at WrestleMania, and then thank God we never have to talk about it again.
Well, who won though, Joseph? After all that, who won the night?
I got to give it to Raw. I mean, there's some definite pitfalls, but the highs were way better in my opinion than WCW. The highs in WCW were literally a match between two guys who don't have a storyline and we don't know yet.
Yeah.
And on Raw, it's the highs are full blown storylines, getting to the next level, getting you hyped for the pay-per-view. Those are the highs. That's what it should be.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't really have any more to say. I think you're absolutely right. Raw definitely won. It was a better product this week. But what do the fans think, Joseph? What was your rating over there?
Well, the rating for Raw was a 3.1.
Well, you might be shocked to believe this, Joseph, but the fans agree with us. They were tuning into Raw. That's what they wanted to see. WCW only got a 2.9.
There you go. Good job, fans.
Yeah, they're right for once. But I mean, that really does it for us, Joseph. Anything more to add?
No, I think we're good. We got to get you to bed.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, that does it for us, everybody. On behalf of Joseph and myself, have a good one.
Bye, guys. Hey, everybody, it's Joseph. And guess what? Not only can you listen to us every Monday on Spotify, but you can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and YouTube Podcasts as well. Just search for Monday Night Wars Podcast. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at MON Night Wars Pod, on Instagram at Monday Night Wars Podcast, or just email us at mnwpodcast@gmail.com. And finally, subscribe to our Patreon at Monday Night Wars Podcast. For $2 a month, you get every pay-per-view from WCW and WWF during this era, as well as additional content later on. Once again, thank you for listening. We'll see you here next time on the Monday Night Wars Podcast.